I gave my sister money to pay off her debt, only for her to spend it on luxury goods and pretend she never owed me anything. I had always been the kind of person who would go to great lengths to help those I loved, whether it was offering advice, lending a hand when someone was in need, or sharing what little I had. I'd never hesitated to help. Family was everything to me, and my sister, Zoe, was no exception. Despite our differences, we had a bond that went back as far as I could remember. We'd been through a lot together, from childhood squabbles to sharing our dreams and fears as adults. I trusted her, perhaps too much, as I would come to find out. Zoe had always had a bit of a reckless streak. As much as I loved her, she had a tendency to make impulsive decisions, especially when it came to money. She would buy things she didn't need, overextend her finances, and then wonder why she was drowning in debt. It had been an ongoing issue for years, and every time she found herself in a financial bind, she would call me, asking for help. I would always step in, even though part of me knew I was enabling her. But each time, I told myself it was different. This time, she would learn her lesson. This time, she would pay me back. It was about a year ago when things really started to unravel for Zoe. She had been living in a small apartment with her boyfriend, Max, but as usual, her finances were a mess. She had taken out several credit cards to cover basic living expenses, all the while accumulating late fees, high interest rates, and mounting bills. One evening, after a particularly difficult phone call with her, she reached out to me again, her voice trembling. "I don't know what to do," she said, barely above a whisper. "Max and I are barely making rent, and I've been missing payments on my credit cards. I just don't know how I'm going to get out of this. Can you help me? Please, I don't know who else to turn to." I could hear the desperation in her voice, and I knew how much it meant to her to be independent. She hated asking for help, but she had gotten to a point where there was no way out without it. I knew this wasn't the first time she had found herself in this situation, but I also knew how much she wanted things to improve. So, I made the decision to step in. "Zoe, you know I'll help you. I don't want to see you struggle. But this time, we need to come up with a plan. I'll give you the money, but you need to promise me that this will be the last time. You need to take responsibility for your spending and figure out a way to manage your finances going forward." She promised me, of course. She always did. She assured me that this was the last time, that she would change, that she would finally get things under control. So, I agreed to give her the money, $7,000. I took the money from my savings account, money I had worked hard for, and sent it to her, trusting that she would follow through on her promise. At first, things seemed to improve. Zoe started paying off her debts and made some efforts to budget better. I thought maybe this time, she had truly turned a corner. She would occasionally send me updates on her progress, and I would give her advice on how to manage her money. For a while, everything seemed fine. I felt relieved, even proud of her for taking steps in the right direction. But I had no idea that this sense of relief was temporary. A few months after I had given her the money, I started noticing changes. Zoe was acting differently, more distant, more secretive. When I tried to check in with her about her finances, she would brush it off, saying everything was fine and that she was keeping things under control. I didn't think much of it at first. Maybe she just wanted some space, I thought. But deep down, I knew something was off. One Saturday, I was out with a few friends when I ran into Zoe unexpectedly. I hadn't seen her in weeks, and when I approached her, I was shocked by what she was wearing. A brand new designer handbag, a pair of expensive shoes, and a stylish coat that looked like it had cost more than I could make in a month. My first thought was one of concern, but I quickly masked it with a smile. "Wow, Zoe, you look great. That bag, where did you get it?" She smiled, but there was an air of defensiveness in her voice. "Oh, I've been treating myself. I deserve it, right? I've been working hard, and Max and I have been doing better financially." I tried to mask my confusion. Zoe had told me she was paying off her debts, and yet here she was, flaunting these luxury items as if she had no financial worries. I felt a pit grow in my stomach. Something wasn't adding up. As the conversation continued, I pushed aside the doubts creeping in. Zoe didn't seem like she was hiding anything, but the more I thought about it, the more uneasy I felt. I began to suspect that she wasn't as financially responsible as she claimed to be. When we parted ways that day, I decided to do something I hadn't done before. I took a look at her social media profiles. Zoe had always posted a little more than I was comfortable with, often flaunting her new purchases and outings. But I hadn't paid much attention until now. What I found left me feeling sick to my stomach. There were multiple posts, photos of her with Max at high-end restaurants, trips to the mall with friends, and pictures of her new luxury goods. The more I scrolled, the more I realized that these were the kinds of things she had never been able to afford when I had first given her the money. She had promised me she was using it to pay off her debt, but nothing in these photos suggested that she was living within her means. I felt betrayed all over again. I tried to brush it off at first, telling myself I was overthinking it. But the more I thought about it, the angrier I became. I had given her the money out of love and trust, and this was how she repaid me, by living a life of luxury while I struggled to make ends meet. I knew I had to confront her, but the fear of what the confrontation would do to our relationship held me back. But then came the final straw. One evening, I received a message from Zoe out of the blue. She wanted to meet up and talk. She didn't seem upset, and for a moment, I thought maybe she had something important to share. But as soon as we sat down at a local cafe, I realized that this wasn't a conversation I was going to like. I know I haven't kept in touch much lately, Zoe began, looking uneasy, but I've been doing a lot of thinking. I nodded, already anticipating where this was going. What's going on, Zoe? She hesitated for a moment before continuing. I know I owe you money, and I really am sorry for not paying you back yet, but things have been tight. I've had to spend some of the money on, well, things I needed. But I promise I'll pay you back as soon as I can. The words stung more than I expected. She was still trying to act as if she was in control of the situation. She was still pretending that everything was fine, but I had already seen the truth. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. Zoe, I said, my voice trembling with frustration, I've seen the posts. I've seen what you've been spending your money on, and it's not debt repayment. You told me that the money I gave you would be used to pay off your bills, and instead, you've used it to buy luxury items for yourself. I trusted you. I gave you everything I had, and you've lied to me. Her face flushed with guilt, but she didn't say anything for a long while. Finally, she looked up, her expression defensive. I didn't know what else to do, she said softly. I wanted to feel good about myself again. I felt like I deserved it. You don't understand. Things with Max and I aren't perfect. I needed something to make me feel better. I shook my head in disbelief. You needed to feel better by spending money that wasn't even yours? I can't believe you would do this to me, Zoe. The truth hit me hard. She wasn't just irresponsible with her money. She was selfish. She had used my generosity to fund a lifestyle she couldn't afford, and now she was acting like she didn't owe me anything. I had been a fool to trust her with that kind of responsibility. The pain of realizing that my sister, someone I had loved and trusted, had taken advantage of me in this way was almost unbearable. But in that moment, I knew what I had to do. I couldn't keep enabling her, and I couldn't keep pretending like everything would work out. I had given her the benefit of the doubt one too many times. Now, it was time to take control of my own life, and that meant holding her accountable for her actions. The confrontation with Zoe felt like a weight had been lifted off my chest, but it didn't bring me the relief I had hoped for. Instead, it only made me realize how deep her disregard for my trust ran. I had spent so much time trying to convince myself that my sister, the one person I thought I could always count on, had simply made a mistake. But as the truth unfolded, I could no longer ignore the fact that this wasn't just a one-off error. It was part of a pattern of behavior that had become all too familiar. Over the next few days, I found myself replaying the conversation in my mind, trying to make sense of it all. I couldn't help but feel like a fool for having given Zoe that money in the first place. I had made it clear to her how important it was that she used the money to pay off her debt, and yet, she had used it for her own indulgences. She hadn't even tried to disguise her actions or pretend like she was doing the right thing. She had simply gone ahead and used the money however she saw fit, and then acted as though nothing had changed. I spent that entire weekend with a heavy heart, processing the anger and betrayal that had slowly settled in my chest. How could she do this to me? How could someone I loved, someone I thought I knew, so blatantly take advantage of my goodwill? The thought of it made me sick to my stomach. And then there was the added hurt of her dismissiveness. She didn't even seem truly sorry. She wasn't even apologizing for the right reasons. She was apologizing because she knew she had been caught. That was the difference. I couldn't understand how things had gotten this bad. In the past, Zoe had always been the free spirit, the one who acted impulsively without thinking of the consequences. I had accepted that part of her personality, but this time it felt different. This time, She wasn't just acting recklessly with her own life. She was involving me in it, and I had paid the price. My savings were gone, and I felt like I had no way to get them back. Despite my frustration, I still couldn't bring myself to cut her off completely. The thought of severing our relationship felt impossible. After all, she was my sister. We had shared so much over the years. Our childhood, our family struggles, our secrets. I had been there for her when things had gotten tough in the past. And yes, she had made mistakes before, but I had always forgiven her, convinced that she would eventually learn from them. But this time felt different. This time, she had crossed the line. I knew that I needed to have another conversation with her, but I didn't know where to begin. The truth was, I was terrified of what that conversation would mean for our relationship. I didn't want to completely shut her out, but I also couldn't keep enabling her behavior. She needed to understand the weight of what she had done, and that meant holding her accountable. A few days later, I decided to reach out. I texted Zoe and told her I wanted to meet up and talk things through. I had hoped that maybe, just maybe, she would finally show some genuine remorse. I wanted to believe that we could fix this, that our bond as sisters could survive this betrayal. She replied almost immediately, saying that she'd be available to meet the next day. As much as I hated the idea of seeing her again, I knew I had to go. I needed closure, and I needed to make sure I was standing my ground. No more excuses. No more pretending like everything was okay. The next day, we met at a quiet cafe, a place we used to frequent when we were younger. It felt almost nostalgic to be there, but the circumstances couldn't have been more different. Zoe arrived a few minutes late, looking disheveled and anxious. I could tell she had been stewing over what was to come, just as I had. "Hey," she said softly, sliding into the seat across from me. "Thanks for agreeing to meet up." I gave her a curt nod, but didn't say anything immediately. I needed to get this out. "Zoe," I began, my voice steady but firm. "We need to talk about what happened with the money." Her face tightened, and I saw a flicker of guilt flash across her features, but it was gone as quickly as it appeared. "I know you're upset," she said, her tone defensive. "And I know I should have handled things differently, but you don't understand how hard things have been for me. I thought that buying a few things for myself, things that made me feel good, was the only way to cope." I felt a rush of frustration rise in my chest. She was still making excuses. She wasn't owning up to what she had done. Instead, she was trying to rationalize it. "No, Zoe," I snapped, my voice rising slightly. "It's not about you buying things to make yourself feel good. It's about the fact that you lied to me. You promised me that you would use that money to pay off your debts, and instead, you used it to fund your luxury purchases. You used my money to live a life you couldn't afford, and now you're pretending like it's no big deal. I trusted you, and you took advantage of that trust." She shifted uncomfortably in her seat, avoiding my gaze. "I didn't mean to hurt you," she mumbled. "I didn't think it would matter. I thought it was just a little bit of spending, just a small thing to help me feel better. But I didn't want you to find out like this." I shook my head. "It does matter, Zoe. It matters because I gave you that money to help you. I wanted to help you get out of this mess, not watch you make the same mistakes over and over again. And now, I feel like I've been taken advantage of. I feel like I've been played for a fool." Her eyes welled up with tears. "I'm sorry, okay? I know I messed up. I can't change what I did, but I'm really sorry for what I've put you through." I wanted to believe her. I wanted to hear those words and feel comforted, but the truth was, it didn't change what had happened. Her apology wasn't enough to erase the damage that had been done, and it wasn't enough to heal the hurt I felt. "I'm not asking for you to fix everything, Zoe," I said, my voice softer now, but no less firm. "But I need you to understand that this has affected me in ways you can't even imagine. I gave you that money out of love, and you didn't just squander it. You lied about it. You betrayed my trust." She looked down, unable to meet my eyes. The silence that followed was heavy, filled with the weight of unspoken words. I didn't know where to go from here. I didn't know if we could repair the damage, if we could find a way back to what we once had. "I don't know what to say anymore," Zoe finally whispered. "I know I messed up, and I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but please know that I'm truly sorry." I took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm of emotions swirling within me. I knew I couldn't keep holding on to the past, but I also knew that forgiveness wasn't something I could give away so easily. I needed time. Time to process. Time to understand what it meant to forgive her, and whether I even could. "I need some space, Zoe," I said, my voice quiet. "I need time to think about all of this." I can't just forget what you did. But I need time to figure out what's next for us. Zoe nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. I understand. I'll give you space. I'm sorry for everything. I really am. And with that, she stood up and left the cafe, leaving me sitting there alone with my thoughts, unsure of what the future would hold for our relationship. The days following my conversation with Zoe felt like a whirlwind. I was caught in a storm of emotions, each one more intense than the last. After confronting her, I felt a mix of relief and confusion. Relief because I had finally stood up for myself, and confusion because, despite her apology, the damage had already been done. She had crossed a line I wasn't sure could ever be uncrossed, and no matter how much I wanted to forgive her, I wasn't sure I was ready. For the first time in a long time, I found myself questioning everything. How had things gotten this far? Why had I allowed her to make the same mistakes over and over again without stepping in sooner? Was I enabling her bad behavior by bailing her out? The more I thought about it, the more I realized that I had been blinded by my love for her. I had allowed my sister to take advantage of my trust, not once but twice, and now I was left picking up the pieces of my shattered expectations. The anger I felt wasn't just about the money, though that was a big part of it. It was about the years of letting her get away with things, the times I had turned a blind eye to her irresponsibility, and the deep feeling of betrayal that lingered now that I knew the truth. The $7,000 wasn't just money. It was trust, a promise I had made to her that she would take responsibility for her life. It was a promise that she had broken, and I wasn't sure how to recover from that. I spent the next few days avoiding Zoe, trying to make sense of everything. She had given me space, just as I had asked, but I could feel the weight of our unresolved tension. When I thought about her, I felt a mixture of hurt and frustration. I had tried so hard to be there for her, to help her get out of the mess she had created, and now I was the one left holding the pieces. I couldn't escape the images of her with her new luxury items, the handbag, the shoes, the designer coat. It was as if she had completely disregarded the sacrifices I had made for her. I couldn't fathom how she could be so careless with something that had cost me so much. But then, the deeper truth hit me. She wasn't careless. She was selfish. She had used my money to fund her desire for instant gratification, all while pretending that she was doing the responsible thing. I had been nothing more than an enabler to her toxic behavior. But what hurt the most was the realization that she hadn't truly changed. All the promises she made about getting better, about learning from her mistakes, were empty words. She had told me what I wanted to hear, but her actions spoke louder than her words ever could. I had been naive to believe that she would suddenly become responsible just because I had given her the money to pay off her debt. The truth was, she didn't want to change. She wanted to keep living her life without consequences, and I had been foolish enough to let her. As the days wore on, I found myself growing more and more distant from Zoe. I didn't reach out to her. I didn't respond to her texts. I was tired of feeling like I was always the one giving, always the one sacrificing, while she took and never learned from her mistakes. I had to protect myself, and that meant cutting ties with her, at least for the time being. I wasn't ready to forgive her, not yet, and maybe I wasn't ever going to be. But then, one night, Zoe reached out again. She texted me, asking if we could talk. She said she had been thinking a lot about what had happened, and she realized that she needed to be honest with me. I hesitated, unsure if I was ready to hear her out. I didn't know if I had the strength to go through another round of empty apologies and excuses. But, despite everything, I still loved her. I still wanted to believe that she could change. So, I agreed to meet her, though my heart was heavy with doubt. The next day, we met at a quiet cafe. I arrived early, needing time to gather my thoughts. When Zoe showed up, she looked different. Her eyes were tired, and she had the same guilt-ridden expression she had worn during our last conversation. But there was something else in her demeanor this time, something that made me feel like maybe she had truly been reflecting on her actions. "Bae," Zoe said softly as she sat down across from me. "I know I've messed up, and I know you're hurt. I've been thinking a lot about what happened, and I don't want you to think I'm making excuses. I just want you to know that I get why you're upset." I looked at her, my arms crossed over my chest, my emotions still raw. "You say that you get it, Zoe, but I don't think you do. You keep apologizing, but you've been doing the same thing over and over. You promise you'll change, but you never do." Her face flushed with embarrassment. "I know. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I haven't messed up. I have. I've been selfish and irresponsible. But I've been thinking about everything I've done, and I realize I've hurt you in ways I can't take back. And I'm sorry. I really am. I sighed, feeling the frustration building again. Zoe, it's not just about saying sorry. It's about actions. You've shown me time and time again that you don't take responsibility for your choices. You took the money I gave you, and instead of using it to fix your life, you used it to buy things you didn't need. You didn't even try to make things right. She nodded, her eyes welling up with tears. I know. I've been selfish. I don't know why I did it. I guess I just wanted to feel good, you know? To buy things that would make me feel better, even if it was just for a little while. I didn't think about how it would hurt you. Exactly, I said, the anger returning to my voice. You didn't think. You acted without considering the consequences. And now I'm the one left picking up the pieces. I'm sorry, she repeated, the words sounding hollow this time. I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but I want you to know that I'm going to do everything I can to make it right. I'll pay you back, I swear. I'll get a job. I'll work harder. Please don't give up on me. Her words hit me like a ton of bricks. The idea of her paying me back, of her finally taking responsibility for her actions, was something I had longed for. But something inside me told me that this was just another empty promise, another excuse. How many times had she said the same thing? How many times had she promised to change, only to fall back into the same patterns? I don't know if I can believe you anymore, Zoe, I said quietly. I can't keep doing this. I can't keep letting you hurt me and then asking for forgiveness when it's convenient for you. I need more than promises. I need actions. Zoe's face crumpled with emotion. She reached across the table, as if to take my hand, but I pulled away, not ready to let her in again. I needed space. I needed time. And I needed to make sure that I was doing what was best for me, not for her. I'm sorry, Zoe whispered again, her voice breaking. I really am. I just want to make things right. But I was already shaking my head, my mind made up. You can't make things right overnight, Zoe. You've hurt me, and it's going to take time for me to trust you again, if I ever do. The days following my conversation with Zoe were filled with uncertainty. I felt like I was standing at a crossroads, torn between my love for my sister and the overwhelming realization that I couldn't keep enabling her destructive behavior. Every time I thought about what had happened, about the money, the lies, the broken trust, I felt a heavy weight in my chest. I knew I couldn't go on pretending like everything was okay. I couldn't allow her to keep making the same mistakes while I picked up the pieces. I found myself thinking about everything that had led me to this point. Growing up, I had always been the more responsible one. Zoe, on the other hand, had always been the free spirit, impulsive, carefree, and sometimes reckless. She had always relied on me to help her when things went wrong, and each time, I had stepped in. I had supported her through countless bad decisions, always with the belief that she would eventually grow out of it. But this time was different. This time, I had given her everything I had, money, trust, and the benefit of the doubt, and she had betrayed me in a way I wasn't sure I could come back from. Part of me still wanted to believe that she was capable of change, that she would one day take responsibility for her actions and learn from her mistakes. But the other part of me, the part that had been hurt so many times before, knew that I couldn't keep waiting for her to change. I couldn't keep sacrificing my own well-being for someone who wasn't willing to put in the effort to change. I spent the next week talking to close friends and family, trying to figure out what the best course of action was. Everyone had different opinions, of course. Some of my friends told me I was being too hard on Zoe, that she was going through a tough time and needed my support. Others told me that I was being too forgiving and that I needed to let go of the toxic relationship. But no one could give me the answers I was looking for. The truth was, I knew what I had to do. The decision had been forming in my mind for days, but I wasn't ready to admit it to myself. I had spent so much time trying to protect Zoe, trying to be the sister who always had her back, but at some point, I had to start protecting myself. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It wasn't even about the betrayal. It was about the way I had allowed her to manipulate me, to use my kindness and my love as a way to escape the consequences of her own actions. I had been enabling her, and I had been doing it for years. But I couldn't keep doing it. I couldn't keep giving her chances to hurt me again. The day came when I finally made up my mind. I couldn't keep pretending that everything was okay, and I couldn't keep waiting for Zoe to change. I had to let go. I called Zoe that afternoon and asked her to meet me at the cafe where we had had our last conversation. When she arrived, I could tell she was nervous. She had that same guilty look in her eyes, but this time, I didn't feel pity for her. I felt a quiet resolve. I had made my decision, and I wasn't going to back down. Zoe, I said, keeping my voice calm but firm, I've been thinking a lot about everything, and I've come to a decision. She looked at me with wide eyes, her face filled with uncertainty. What do you mean? Is everything okay? No, I said, shaking my head. It's not okay. I've been thinking about what happened, about everything you've done, and I've realized that I can't keep doing this. I can't keep pretending that you're going to change or that you're going to take responsibility for your actions. I've given you chance after chance, and you've let me down every time. Her expression softened, but I could see the defensiveness creeping in. I'm sorry, okay? I've apologized. I've been working on it. I don't know what else you want from me. I want you to understand that I can't keep enabling you, I said, my voice steady. You've taken advantage of my kindness, and you've hurt me. You've lied to me, and you've used my money for things you didn't need. I can't keep letting you do this to me. I'm not asking you to change overnight, but I can't keep supporting you if you're not going to take responsibility for your life. I'm done. Her face fell. Please, don't say that. I know I messed up, but I'm trying to do better. I promise, I'm going to fix things. Just give me time. I can't give you time anymore, Zoe, I said, my voice breaking slightly. You've had all the time in the world, and every time, you've chosen not to change. I can't keep waiting for you to come around. I need to take care of myself now. Zoe's eyes filled with tears, and for a moment, I saw the vulnerable sister I had once known. The one who needed my help, the one who relied on me. But I couldn't let that sway me. I had to be strong. I can't keep doing this, I repeated, my heart heavy with the weight of what I was saying. I need to let go. She sat there, stunned into silence, before finally speaking. I get it. I understand. I don't know what else to say. I don't need you to say anything. I replied, my voice softening. I just need you to understand. I love you, but I can't keep sacrificing myself for you. I need to start putting myself first. And that means stepping away. Zoe nodded slowly, the tears still falling down her face. I'm sorry. I never meant to hurt you. I've messed up so many times, and I don't know how to fix it. I don't want to lose you. You haven't lost me, Zoe, I said, my voice steady despite the ache in my chest. But I need to take a step back. For both of us. We sat in silence for a few moments, neither of us knowing what to say. It was the hardest thing I had ever done, telling my sister, the one person I thought I would always be able to rely on, that I couldn't keep helping her. But I knew it was the right decision. I couldn't keep living in this cycle, enabling her to hurt me and others. I had to take control of my life again. When we finally parted ways, Zoe didn't say much. She didn't beg me to stay, and I didn't ask her for promises. We both knew that there was nothing more to say. The damage had been done, and while I still loved her, I knew I couldn't continue to let her take advantage of me. As I walked away from the cafe, I felt a sense of both relief and sadness. I knew I had made the right decision, but it didn't make it any easier. It was one of the hardest things I had ever done, but I also knew that it was the first step toward healing. It was time to start taking care of myself, to stop letting my sister's mistakes define me. I had to reclaim my life, my finances, and my peace of mind. And that meant letting go of the toxic relationship that had held me back for so long. In the days following my conversation with Zoe, I felt like I was walking through a fog. The decision to distance myself from her had been a necessary one, but that didn't make it any easier. There were moments when I felt a deep ache in my chest, like a physical wound that I couldn't see but could definitely feel. I missed my sister. I missed the good parts of our relationship, the bond we had shared growing up. But every time I thought about letting her back into my life, I reminded myself why I couldn't. The truth was, I was exhausted. I was emotionally drained from years of trying to fix things, to pick up the pieces after Zoe's poor decisions. I had tried to be the responsible one, the one who always showed up when she needed me, the one who believed that deep down, she wanted to change. But the reality was hard to ignore. Zoe wasn't willing to make the effort to fix her life. She wasn't ready to accept responsibility for her actions, and I couldn't keep enabling her. I couldn't keep sacrificing my own well-being for someone who wasn't ready to change. In the weeks that followed, I focused on myself for the first time in a long while. It wasn't easy at first. There were days when I felt guilty for walking away from my sister. The idea of cutting her out of my life, even temporarily, made me feel like I was being cruel. But the more time passed, the more I realized that my decision had been necessary. I wasn't doing this to punish her. I was doing it to protect myself. And for the first time in a long time, I was doing something for myself. I threw myself into my work and my personal life. I started going to the gym more regularly, something I had neglected for a while. I focused on my health, both physical and mental. I reconnected with old friends, the ones who had supported me through thick and thin, the ones who had always been there without expectation. I spent time with my parents, enjoying the comfort and security they provided. I began to realize that while I had been so focused on Zoe, I had neglected the other relationships in my life that truly mattered. It was time to invest in those, to nurture the people who respected and supported me without hesitation. One evening, after a particularly fulfilling day at work, I sat down in my apartment and reflected on everything that had happened. There had been a time when I thought that Zoe's mistakes were my responsibility. I thought that I could fix her, that my love and support would be enough to change her. But now, I understood that I couldn't fix anyone but myself. And that was enough. I had spent so much time trying to hold on to a version of Zoe that I wanted to believe in, but I was finally accepting that the person I was holding on to didn't exist anymore. That night, I made a decision. I was going to stop looking back. I had learned so much from my experience with Zoe, but it was time to let go of the anger, the hurt, and the disappointment. I couldn't change the past, and I couldn't make Zoe change. But I could control my future. I could control how I spent my energy, who I gave my time and love to, and what I wanted my life to look like moving forward. The next day, I found the courage to make the final step in this process. I decided to stop checking up on Zoe. For months, I had been checking her social media accounts, stalking her posts and updates to see if she was doing better, wondering if she had changed. But I knew now that I needed to stop. The more I looked at her life, the more I allowed her to have power over me. It was time to reclaim that power and stop letting her dictate my emotional state. I unfollowed her on social media, and I deleted the messages and photos that I had kept of our time together. It was painful, but it felt like a necessary step. I was freeing myself from the past. I was closing that chapter for good, not because I wanted to forget her, but because I needed to heal. I needed space to move forward without constantly being reminded of the disappointment she had caused me. Over the next few months, I continued to focus on myself. The emotional burden I had carried for so long began to lighten. I stopped second-guessing my decision to cut ties with Zoe. I knew it had been the right choice, even if it had been difficult. I found that the more I prioritized myself, the more I grew as a person. I became stronger, more resilient. I learned how to trust myself again, how to listen to my own needs instead of constantly putting others first. One day, a few months after I had last seen Zoe, I received a message from her. I hesitated before opening it, unsure of what to expect. Would she apologize again? Would she try to explain herself? Or would this be another one of her attempts to manipulate me into feeling guilty? The message was short. I've been working on myself, and I just wanted to say that I'm sorry for everything. I don't expect us to go back to the way things were, but I hope you know that I understand why you did what you did. I'm sorry for hurting you, and I'm trying to get my life together. I stared at the message for a long time, my heart aching as I read her words. I wasn't sure what I expected from Zoe, but this wasn't it. There was no demand for forgiveness, no desperate plea for me to take her back into my life. There was just a simple, honest apology. I realized, in that moment, that she had finally started to understand the gravity of what she had done. She was beginning to take responsibility for her actions, not because it was convenient for her, but because she knew it was the right thing to do. I didn't immediately respond to her message. I didn't know what to say. The truth was, I wasn't sure I could ever fully forgive her, at least not in the way she wanted me to. But I had come to terms with the fact that forgiveness wasn't about letting her back into my life. It was about finding peace within myself, about letting go of the anger and hurt that had weighed me down for so long. A week later, I wrote her back. Thank you for the apology. I appreciate it, but I've had to move on from what happened between us. I'm still healing, and I don't think it's healthy for me to continue to hold on to the past. I wish you the best, Zoe, but I need to keep moving forward. It wasn't an easy message to send, but it was the truth. I had forgiven her in my heart, but forgiveness didn't mean letting her back into my life. I had made peace with the fact that our relationship, as I had once known it, was over. I had done everything I could to help her, but now, it was time for me to take care of myself. As the months passed, I grew more confident in my decision. I found new purpose in my work, in my relationships, and in the life I was building. I still carried the memories of Zoe and the pain of our broken bond, but they no longer controlled me. I was finally living my life on my own terms, and that was enough. I had learned that family didn't always mean putting up with toxic behavior, and that sometimes love meant letting go. I had also learned that true forgiveness wasn't about reconciliation. It was about freeing yourself from the past so you could move forward. I wasn't sure what the future held for Zoe and me, but I knew I was finally ready to embrace whatever came next. It's strange how much weight a single decision can carry, how much power it holds over your life without you even realizing it. The decision I made to distance myself from Zoe was not just about our strained relationship. It was about reclaiming my own life, my sense of self-worth, and my boundaries. It was about taking back control over the parts of my life that had been overshadowed by the emotional toll of trying to fix someone else. I had spent so long trying to repair the damage Zoe had caused, but now I was finally learning how to protect myself from further harm. As the months went by, I found myself becoming a different version of myself, stronger, more self-assured, and, surprisingly, more at peace. At first, I had feared the silence between Zoe and me would grow louder and more unbearable with time, but instead, it became a quiet reassurance that I had made the right decision. Each day that passed without her in my life gave me more clarity. I didn't need her validation to feel complete. I didn't need to carry her burdens anymore. I could breathe easier, live freer. But that didn't mean I had forgotten about her. As much as I had set boundaries and distanced myself emotionally, Zoe was still my sister. Our history together, the memories we had shared, and the love we had once had were not things I could simply erase. I thought about her often, her struggles, her mistakes, and the potential I still believed she had within her. I wanted her to find her way, to get the help she needed, and to stop falling into patterns of self-sabotage. But I realized that my role in her life had changed. I had to stop being the safety net for her reckless decisions. I had to stop being the one who always picked up the pieces when she fell. One afternoon, as I was sitting in a cafe, sipping my coffee and enjoying a rare moment of solitude, my phone buzzed with a message. I didn't recognize the number at first, but when I opened it, I saw Zoe's name. My heart skipped a beat. Hey, it's Zoe. I know it's been a while, and I totally understand if you don't want to talk to me. I've been working on myself, and I just wanted to say thank you for everything you've done for me. I know I hurt you, and I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but I'm in therapy now, and I'm really trying to turn things around. I miss you. I just wanted you to know that. The message wasn't long, but it hit me harder than I expected. The part of me that still loved my sister wanted to reach out immediately to tell her that I was proud of her for seeking therapy and taking the first steps toward changing. But another part of me, the part that had been hurt so many times before, felt the old fears creeping back in. Was this just another empty promise? Was I being naive to think that this time she was really going to change? For a moment, I sat there, staring at my phone, unsure of how to respond. There was a time when I would have immediately forgiven her, when I would have let my love for her blind me to the reality of her actions. But I had learned the hard way that love alone wasn't enough to fix a person. I needed to protect my own heart this time, and that meant setting limits on how much I was willing to give. I took a deep breath and started typing a response. Zoe, I'm glad to hear you're working on yourself. That's the first step, and it's important. But I've made it clear before that I need to focus on myself right now, and that hasn't changed. I can't go back to the way things were before. It's not about forgiveness. It's about knowing what's healthy for me. I hope you understand that. Take care of yourself. I hit send and immediately felt a mixture of relief and sadness. The relief came from the fact that I had maintained my boundaries and stayed true to myself. The sadness came from the acknowledgement that our relationship, once so close, so filled with promise, was irreparably changed. But it had to be. I couldn't keep going down the same path with her, and I couldn't continue to let her take from me without giving anything back. The next few days were quiet. Zoe didn't respond immediately, and I didn't expect her to. I knew that my words might have stung, but I also knew that I had been honest. The old pattern of me taking care of her and putting myself second was over. It was time for both of us to figure things out on our own. Weeks passed, and I continued to build my life, piece by piece. I started traveling again, something I hadn't done in years, and I met new people who valued me for who I was, not for what I could give them. I began to realize just how much I had been missing out on by being consumed with Zoe's problems. My career was flourishing, I had a growing circle of friends who supported me, and I was finally living in a way that was true to myself. I wasn't constantly looking over my shoulder, wondering when the next crisis would hit. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I could breathe. And then, one day, out of the blue, I received a message from my mom. She had been in touch with Zoe and wanted to let me know that Zoe was doing better. She had been in therapy for several months, was taking responsibility for her debts, and had started making significant changes in her life. My heart stirred with a mixture of hope and caution. Part of me wanted to believe that this was the beginning of the change I had always wished for. But another part of me knew that actions spoke louder than words. Zoe had a long way to go, and I had to continue protecting myself in the process. That evening, I found myself sitting on the couch, reflecting on the years I had spent trying to fix things with Zoe. I realized that, in some ways, I had been trying to fix myself through her. I had spent so much of my life trying to make her better, to make our relationship work, that I had neglected my own needs. But now, I had learned how to put myself first. I had learned that loving someone didn't mean enabling them. It meant holding them accountable and letting them grow on their own. I didn't know what the future held for Zoe and me. I didn't know if we would ever rebuild the relationship we once had. But I knew that I had done everything I could. I had loved her, I had supported her, and I had set the boundaries I needed to move forward with my life. As I closed my eyes that night, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The pain of the past wasn't gone, but it no longer controlled me. I had found my strength, and that was something no one could take away from me. I was free, and for the first time in a long time, I felt ready for whatever came next.